Today on Public Research, Seth Frantzman of the Jerusalem Post and Foundation for Defense of Democracies joins me to discuss his new book, The October 7 War, Israel's Battle for Security in Gaza. We go in depth on the origins of that fateful day, its aftermath, and the ongoing regional conflict between Israel and Iran. To dive in, I want to go back to 2005, and I've been asking myself this what-if question. If Israel had disengaged from Gaza, but kept the Rafah crossing to make sure that digging equipment, guns, rockets could not enter Gaza, I wonder what would have happened. Have you asked yourself that?
Well, I think it's important to remember what that crossing, what looks like, or what that is. So Israel, before 2005, there was 7,000, I think, almost Israeli Jews living there in various communities. The communities were in several clumps, and they were in certain areas. And Israel then also controlled this area along the Philadelphia corridor, which was that area near Rafah, which is Rafah crossing, and it's a few miles that cross along the Egyptian border. So I think it's important to remember that Israel understood, I guess, that there was going to be an issue with the Egyptian border. They did try to figure out how the EU might play a role there. There was a group called EU Border Assistance or something. It was called UBAM. It was supposed to be in Rafah and play some sort of a role. And I think that had the Israelis stayed in Gaza after having said they were going to leave, Gaza, if they'd stayed in Rafah, I think that it would have become a magnet anyway for Hamas attacks and things. So, and it probably would have been, I don't know, it would have been difficult to control it or supply it. Maybe they could have, because it's kind of down in a triangle down there in the south near where the airport used to be. So I guess it could have been controlled, probably, but I assume it would have fed into stories that, well, Israel's going to come back, they're not really leaving or something. And then the question is, if Israel only controlled the Rafah border crossing, but not the Philadelphia part, which is the rest of the corridor, so that's a few miles from Rafah crossing that goes basically through Rafah city, which is a huge, dense urban area right near the border that goes down the coast. Israel had carried out an operation there in 2000. I almost want to say 3 or 5, maybe 5, no, 3 or 4, something like that. Right before Israel left, they had gone into the Philadelphia corridor and cleared it out. So you wonder then. I think it would have been complicated to stay if they just stay at the crossing. I assume then what would have happened was maybe the Egyptians would have just opened another crossing. So I don't know if that would have solved all the problems. It might have solved some, but it's like everything in history. You can never know. You can never go back. I think Israel tried to play the international community's game. It said, listen, we're leaving. You want us to leave. We're leaving. We're leaving all of it, the whole thing. That's what you asked us to do. And the EU will run the crossing. Who better than the EU? I mean, that will bring peace. I mean, can you imagine a better way to say to the international community, we're serious about peace? And I think that was the message the government of Israel tried to do. And we know exactly where it ended up, which is everyone kind of worked against it.
So here's what boggles my mind. Israel fought 2 wars in Gaza before October 7th during the 15 years, right? I forget the exact years, 2014, right? In 2009. What were the years of the 2?
They fought a bunch of conflicts. I don't know how their operations are, but so Israel left in 2005. Okay. Yeah. In 2006, Hamas carried out an operation that kidnapped Gilad Shalit, an Israeli soldier, a soldier. They kidnapped him near Kerem Shalom, near Khan Yunis in the south. Now, Hamas, by the way, didn't even control all of Gaza at the time, but they kidnapped him anyway. And Israel didn't want to go back in. They went in a little bit. They had a small operation called Summer Rains, I think it's called. Then there was another short operation later that year as well, very short, but they couldn't find Shalit. Then there was Israel had to fight the war in the north against Hezbollah, so nothing happened. In 2008, there was so much rocket fire, Israel launched another operation, 2008-9, at the winter, called Cast Lead. Then, and that was a big operation, like I think a lot of casualties, especially on the Palestinian side. Then there was another operation in 2012 called Pillar of Cloud, Mahmoud Anan, where the IDF didn't go in, but they made it look, they moved forces to the border and carried out a big bombing campaign, and not much was achieved. Then in 2014, there was the one which was designed to go after the Hamas tunnels. And those were tunnels that were going under the border. So
was that called Guardian of the Walls?
I thought that was Protective Edge.
Okay. Well, my point was they did two wars where they entered Gaza.
Those were the big ones, 2014.
My question is, by that point, it was obvious. I mean, Hamas had been firing rockets. They knew about the tunnels. They knew that Hamas was accumulating a huge arsenal. Why didn't it occur to Israel, okay, we're going to go into Gaza. Maybe we should cut off Hamas's supply lines for digging equipment and rockets and now go back to establish some kind of beachhead on the crossing?
I don't know. I mean, I think they would have felt that was reoccupying Gaza again. The Egyptians would have opposed it. Let's remember what was happening back then. In 2011, the Egyptian government was overthrown in the revolution there. And Mohammed Morsi came to power, the Muslim Brotherhood candidate, in 2012. And he ran it for like a year. And that was a disaster. I mean, first of all, because all the weapons from the Gaddafi regime, when Gaddafi was overthrown, flowed through Egypt, through Sinai, into Gaza. So you had a huge disaster on everyone's hands. And I don't think Israel wanted to mess with the Morsi regime. Also considering the fact that the Obama administration at the time apparently, was kind of keen on the Morsi government until it was overthrown, and they were obviously not keen. But
was it discussed in Israel during those wars?
I don't know if it was discussed. I mean, there were all sorts of things there were surely voices, probably associated with the more far right saying we should go back in, disengagement was a disaster. Look at all the rocket fire. This is a disaster. We should go back. And I think also there were probably these voices about why can't we resettle the Palestinians in the Sinai or create an economic zone for them? And there was another crazy idea about building an island off the coast of Gaza as some sort of free economic zone. Wow. There's a lot of ideas that were floated about things about Gaza. It's not that Israel didn't think about it.
But nobody in Israel that you can recall said, hey, we're going to lose soldiers and spend all this money dismantling these huge tunnels. Maybe we should stop Hamas, their ability to get this, huge digging equipment. So we don't.
No, I think there was a lot of pressure on Egypt. I think there was pressure on Egypt after Morsi was replaced by Sisi to flood the tunnels, which the Egyptians claim they did. The Egyptians didn't play around. They bulldozed like the huge area of Egyptian Rafah, which was on the other side, ostensibly to create like a security buffer zone. So I think lots of initiatives were tried. I think some of the smuggling did stop, but maybe by that time, the Hamas knew how to build most of the rockets. So, and remember, a lot of the stuff that went in was dual use. So, when you're talking about cement to build tunnels or things that like drills to build tunnels, I mean, ostensibly that's stuff people use to build houses. So, the international community would have said, well, you can't stop that. That's a civilian object.
Right. So let's talk about the roots of October 7th. I've heard it said, that they say October 7th was like the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. But I'm not going to ask you to respond to that ridiculous thing. But let me play devil's advocate as far as, did Netanyahu contribute to the roots of October 7th in the sense of putting yourself in the Gazan shoes? right? Netanyahu has sort of walked away from any talk of a two-state solution after he comes back to power in 2008 or 9. The world is not focused on Gaza. The settlements are expanding more and more in the West Bank. These Israeli politicians like Smotrich are publishing his decisive plan, which basically says we should extinguish any possibility of a Palestinian national movement. The Abraham Accords are coming. Did that put Hamas, Sinwar, who's obviously a totally evil person, in a situation where they felt like we got to do something, you think?
I think it put them in a situation where they had to do something. I think that Sinwar came back to Gaza in 2011 as a result of the Shalit deal. He was one of the 1,000 prisoners, probably one of the worst ones, but he was released. So it took him a few years, I think, to come to power and consolidate power because Ismail Haniyeh was still in charge. I think it took him some time to kind of grow into his shoes. By the time he gets to power a few years later, he inherits, what is Hamas, which is, thousands of rockets, but I think they're kind of, at that time, the rockets they were just getting to reach Tel Aviv. And what else does Hamas have? AK-47s, RPGs, and then in 2014, some of the tunnels are reduced next to the border, but what Hamas decides is, okay, we'll stop building tunnels on the border, we'll just dig them down everywhere. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of miles of tunnels. It's totally crazy. But not crazy from their perspective. I mean, it's a great investment for them. They can just live underground because Israel's high-tech precision warfare is all about above ground. So, I don't know. Look, Hamas is an organization that since its inception has, not only incorporated, genocidal anti-Semitic ideology, but also other streams of things within it, which it's a Muslim Brotherhood-based organization, which chose violence as opposed to politics. It's a Palestinian nationalist extremist movement as well. So, and remember, in the 90s, Hamas spent most of the 90s bombing Israelis in order to destroy the peace process. And one could argue, I think, that actually Netanyahu's career took off in the 90s, partly as a response to that. So let's remember that, Hamas helped to destroy the peace process.
They're not interested in it. Yeah.
Well, so the thing is, Hamas appears in the 90s. The Israeli right feeds off of that as well. The Israeli right says, you see, the Palestinians are lying. We give them stuff, they blow us up. Hamas profits from that. And then the Second Intifada comes, and Hamas profits from disengagement. Instead of Gaza becoming a normal place, a model of a Palestinian state, it becomes the model of exactly what the Israeli right would assume a Palestinian state is, which is a genocidal enclave. So I don't know. I mean, Sinwar comes out of that whole milieu. I mean, he grew up in Khan Yunis. He was from a younger age was killing people, mostly Palestinians. He accused of collaboration. I mean, I think his whole worldview is a pretty extremist one, and so he gets to October 7th, having tried a bunch of other things. He tried this Great March of Return in 2017. He tries other operations that don't really work. He gets the Iranians and Hezbollah basically to partner with him much closer than they were before. So remember, you mentioned the other wars. When in 2009, 2014, there was no multi-front Iranian-backed war on Israel at the same time. The evil genius of Sinwar is that he helps to knit this stuff together with his collaborators in Iran and Hezbollah. So, I think that there's a lot going on there. I think that he assumes October 7th would be a black swan event or inversion point in which it would change history, because I think he assumed if you kill enough people, it will cause Israel to take over the Gaza Strip again. But he probably thought, even if he dies in that it will enable Hamas to take over the West Bank, which is his real dream. And I assume his friends or handlers or backers in Doha and Ankara and Tehran and Moscow and Beirut basically agree with his assessment. And I think that's kind of the origins of his view that he has to do something totally crazy beyond anything that happened before.
I've heard you make this point, and it's really interesting. But just quickly explain how you think he thought that was going to work as far as taking over the West Bank.
Well, I think he assumed somehow that he understood that the Israeli strategic conception, especially under Netanyahu, was that it's a good thing that Hamas is stuck in the Gaza because it's stuck there. It can't influence everyone. As long as you fight little wars against it, it can't get its feet wet in terms of populism in the West Bank. So you keep it in Gaza, you neutralize it, and then you divide the Palestinian constituent groups into two pieces, which they're geographically divided anyway, so it's not so complicated. But you have Fatah in one part and Hamas in the other, which, by the way, historically, if you look at the creation of Pakistan in 1948, you know Pakistan used to run Bangladesh, and it was eventually divided into two pieces because it's impossible to run two polities on two sides of a state that you're at war with. And I think India was perfectly happy to see that partition that happened in terms of the Bangladesh, East Pakistan become Bangladesh. So I think Israel thought strategically this is brilliant. And I think that Hamas thought, okay, you know what? If they think it's smart, how do we get around that? Well, the only way to get around it is to make us, Hamas, popular in the West Bank. Well, how do you do that? Well, we can't just keep fighting 5-day wars with rockets because actually it turns out people in the West Bank think that's boring. The only way to do it is to massacre enough people that it forces Israel to go into Gaza and fight a 2 or 3 year war that will turn into an Israeli version of Vietnam that will radicalize the population and lead to an uprising in the West Bank paid for by money from Turkey or Qatar or Iran or whatever. And that will create some sort of a denouement. Like, and I've argued this before as well. It's not a secret that I said the October 7th is like the first shot in a much bigger war. I said it's like the shot that killed Franz Ferdinand in 1914. It's one thing that you say, okay, that happened, but so what? It's terrible for Israel, but okay, it's just one thing. But it's not one thing. It's connected to a bunch of other strings that lead to a global regional world war or something. And I think Hamas assumed, well, we can benefit from a global regional world war because we will fill the vacuum that is left by all these people fighting each other, and we'll just show up. I mean, they'll all die fighting each other, and we'll come out of the tunnels, and they'll wake up one day finding Hamas in control.
I was going to ask if Israel fell into Sinwar's trap in the sense that he thought, okay, they'll win militarily, but they'll lose in the long run because the protests globally will turn a generation of young Westerners against Israel, and it will be a loss for Israel in the PR war that it won't be able to recover from. I want to screen share something with you to show you the secular religion of people who hate Israel that has emerged since October 7th. Now, these are some people from the show Majority Report with Sam Cedar. The guy who's talking is Matt Leck. And then the clip after it will be a guy named David Griscom speaking.
Yeah, we are. I think fascism is a real word to worry about in this country. I think maybe we could just start using Zionism, maybe as a better proxy for the people who subscribe to like a extreme crackdown of American freedom and colonial projects like that. But like, I don't know. Like, I'm rambling a little bit, so
doesn't even make sense. But it demonstrates this mind virus of people who, like, they'll literally get a bad milkshake at McDonald's and then they'll say, well, the milkshakes went downhill because the Zionists took over McDonald's, And then I'll play this next clip.
One of you guys jump in.
Now, you accept it. Now, in all of this fucking window dressing, well, I don't like the right wing in Israel. I would like it if the left came back to power in Israel. The left doesn't exist in Israel because Israel is a settler colonial state that is obsessively pursuing a goal of eradicating Palestinians, and denying them human rights within Israel, and then denying them the very right to life in Gaza and in the West Bank. That is what the reality of the Israeli government is, because it can never do what needs to be done, which is to pursue a one-state solution with equal rights for people regardless of their ethnicity or religion. Wow, what a fucking liberal concept, by the way. A democracy where people have equal rights and equal vote. That should be the kind of shit that liberals like fucking Pac-Man are able to uphold. But no, we're going to make an exception for this ethno-state, and we're going to cry and whine about the consequences of our support for that. Give me a fucking break. You either take the position that Israel has the right to exist as a Jewish exclusive state, as an ethno state for a certain group of people, right? You say, I believe in that. That means that you have to support, because if you say you're for one group of people having political representation, having access to land, having all those kind of things, you need to exclude the others. This is the natural end to that fucking project. And it has been that way our entire life.
I play that because it gives a real sense of the self-righteousness, the visceral nature. And I'm on the left. And I gotta say, if you look at DSA, Democratic Socialists of America, for instance, they have totally dropped healthcare, universal healthcare. They don't give a damn about that. All they do now is just pass resolutions banning Zionists. You know, next thing they're going to be banning people who listen to a Zionist artist like Bob Dylan or Leonard Cohen. It's not only become the top issue, it seems like it's the only issue. And it's almost religious. And I wonder, is this going to be a fad, or is this going to be their lifetime goal? And if it is, will it be the case that Israel has won militarily, but in the process has lost in the long run on a PR front?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Israel always had an uphill struggle on this PR front. So I don't, this pops its head up now and then, but I think that, on many parts of the left or far left or whatever you want to call it, I think that there was never a lot of liking for Israel in the last decade, 2 decades. Now, yeah, if you go back to the day, like in the 70s or whatever, yeah, the left liked Israel, and you could even argue that the right was more anti-Semitic, and these things have all slightly shifted or whatever. But I mean, the JFK left, or the left that Joe Biden grew up in, is not the everything changes in life, just like the right changes. So I think it's always an uphill battle for Israel. I mean, Israel has several struggles in that respect. It is openly a Jewish nationalist state, and even the left in Israel embraces a labor Zionism, which is a Jewish nationalism. So that's not a secret. I think that it was always going to be an uphill struggle once the left said, well, no, we want this kind of, intersectionality, and our thing is, pure democracy, and et cetera, et cetera. Israel was always going to have an issue in the fact that it has aspects of, that it is not as democratic as these other things. Israel doesn't have secular marriage. It's all issues. It was always going to be a struggle. I think that, as you noted in the clips, there's an obsessive religious messianic extremism to this, in which Israel is just the sine qua non of everything that's bad. So it's like, it's the worst thing they can think of. If you ask them about, well, what do you think of Russia's invasion of Ukraine? You get a spectrum of answers from, well, Russia's evil and it's fascist and authoritarian, to the weirdo tanky far left, which is like, well, no, Russia's great, it's anti-imperialist, which is, so you get something totally, you get a weird spectrum of views. Just like if you ask about the Assad regime, you get people that say, well, that's a fascist regime, and you'll get some people on the extreme left who are almost on, who will say, no, Assad is great, which is crazy, but okay, whatever, they think that. So you get a spectrum of weird answers. Whereas on the Israel issue, you just get Israel's evil, it's Zionism, it's apartheid, it is the modern reincarnation, as I think one guy there said, of fascism or Nazism, whatever. So it's just the ism that we don't like. Look, and that's fine. I mean, going back to the Durban conference, and I don't know, it was 2000 or whatever, they said Israel is the new apartheid. We need to take all the activism that defeated apartheid, because remember, apartheid fell in 94 approximately with the elections. So Durban was not that long afterward, the conference. We need to move everyone to now hate Israel. It's the new bad thing. So this has been decades in the making.
So do you disagree with me? Because my perception is Israel's relationship with the left or the Democratic Party now compared to 2008 or 2005 is considerably worse.
No, I think it's worse. I think we have several things going on. The Democratic Party is not a monolith. It's also a huge Big Ten, as the Democrats have always been since the era of FDR or whatever. So, you have the more progressive far left version of that part of that, which is embodied by the Squad or whatever, which is like 5 Congress members, or maybe 8, not very many. And Bernie Sanders a bit, whatever, but he's not even where they are really. It's like 5 people out of 400 members of Congress. I mean, now, are the voters, the college campus types, are they a higher percentage than that? 5 out of 400? I don't know. There's a bunch of those people, but college campuses are always radical. Look at the 60s. I mean, the radicalism of the 60s, where people embraced the Black Panthers or whatever, or American Indian movement, right, which is totally legitimate. That's right, fine. They can embrace those things. What I'd like to say is the American Indian movement and the Black Panthers actually didn't become some massive movement. They stayed quite small, and they have very little impact today. So, college campuses tend to create all sorts of things that don't have much impact in 10 years. My sense is, the image of Israel is eroding, and certainly on the left, or the mainstream left, the image of Israel is not good. That's the nature of the game, because Israel is run by a right wing, and far right government, more far right than ever in its history. That is not a questionable question. It's just a fact. It is openly far more right wing than it was. So how does the left identify with that? Because historically, the centrist left identified with themselves in Israel. But that's okay. The centrist left in America generally does that. They don't identify with the far right in Italy or Norway or whatever. I mean, every European country has a far right now. Mostly the average left-wing person, the Chuck Schumer left or whatever, doesn't look up to those people. That doesn't mean they don't think America should have great relations with Italy. They just don't identify with the Northern League or whatever, and they don't really like Berlusconi. I mean, and that's okay. It's also probably connects to as well the feelings about India and the Modi government, which is not going to go anywhere soon. I don't think Hindu nationalism appeals to center-left people in America, but that's okay. It doesn't have to appeal to them. I mean, American-Indian relations are great. So my assumption with Israel is it's natural that they don't like the current Israeli government. But that doesn't mean they necessarily...
all the people I played, they don't care who the
government... Even fringe, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. No. Look, I don't know. Maybe the people you played will all grow up and actually end up becoming normative Democrats. My sense is they won't, because those types of people that you played have existed for decades.
Right.
Some of them grow out of it. Some of them just, end up running some, little organization, and maybe they transition to doing other things like caring a lot about, some extreme environmental issue, and that's okay, fine.
How angry does it make you when you hear people say Israelis or Jews or Israel supporters will talk about some horrific death on October 7th, people being burned in a car, and this flippant reaction you get often where they say, oh, the IDF did that. It was the Hannibal Doctrine. The IDF killed the civilians. Does that anger you, or
it doesn't bother me that much more than the people that think 9/11 was an inside job and they tell you about what happened to Tower 7, and you can't spend your life debating people that are either crazy or evil. I mean, look, there are these people that try to dismiss the video, the brutality that's caught on video by Hamas, it's all on video. Hamas is so evil that it filmed it itself, and yet the conspiracy theorists are like, no, they still come up with this crazy idea, but Israel did it. Fine, okay, it's okay. They don't want to believe that their heroes, Hamas, openly massacred hundreds of people, even though they videoed. So, but look, it's okay. Some people deny the Holocaust and claim that Anne Frank is not a real person, or whatever. Again, how can you can't stay up all the time hating these people or getting angry about it. Right. I mean, it is depressing to see them, get space in a college discussion, or as if it's legitimized. But again, I think you can't spend your day.
But the Intercept has done some of this stuff. So sorry.
It's not good when it gets too mainstream like that. I mean, the Intercept, borders on being mainstream. So when they start to ask questions and they start to cherry pick little details like, well, this general said that it was the Hannibal Doctrine. I mean, you know what, by the way, the Hannibal Doctrine is not a conspiracy. It really existed. It's just that there's no evidence that Israel carried it out on October 7th, or at least carried it out in any meaningful way. Exactly. There's no videos. There's not one scrap of evidence in which someone said, I was on a kibbutz and the combat helicopter fired on us civilians because there was Hamas next to us. The only time that ever happened was a tank that was ordered to drive into a building and fire on it, where the terrorists were holding hostages, and that's that was investigated, and the commander was cleared. But that story, by the way, is entirely a normal story of how law enforcement deals with the hostage crisis. When hostages are being killed, they usually go in. And by the way, the Waco standoff, which was a total disaster and mass killing of a bunch of people in Waco, was because the American law enforcement decided to go in there with tanks, in fact, and a bunch of people died because of it, and they shouldn't have. But generally, that's how things work. That's not the Hannibal Doctrine. It's just what happens. So these people that when it gets to the Intercept level, it's worth debating it there at some point. But the question is whether they've got their facts right. Generally, what they do is they cherry pick a few facts and then they say, this therefore is evidence of a big thing. And the debate there should be, okay, you've got a bunch of facts, but it's not evidence of much. It doesn't tell us much.
So I just want to ask this question because there's been this suggestion by people that after October 7th, there was some nefarious plot by the government in Israel to fabricate stories of Hamas killing children to justify, it goes on. So I just want to make this clear. Hamas, or the Gazans that entered Israel on October 7th, they killed children or no?
Well, again, I would say the evidence that I saw was there were several kids that were killed, and I think there were some houses that were burned in which there were families in the houses or in the cars or something. I don't remember the full number out of the 1,200 or so, whatever the total number of civilian casualties. I forgot, it's like 600 or 800, but I don't remember the full number that are considered children. There's a number of them. I mean, someone would have to just look it up. It's not rocket science. Children were killed.
And there's photos of the blood-stained, bunk beds.
Kidnapped as well. The Bibas kids were kidnapped, and a bunch of others. I mean, the Bibas kids are still in Gaza, the babies. So this is a fact. I mean, Hamas could have released those kids the first day of the war, by the way. It's not that hard to release babies. Hamas released 4 adult civilians in October.
But I've seen the photos of blood-stained bunk beds.
No, I think they were. I mean, I'm not an expert on every casualty. I wrote a book about this, but I was focusing more on the fighters. Look, I think people were killed. The controversy in October, in the early reporting, was the story of the people that said that babies were beheaded and things, and then they said, well, that the reporter who said that heard it from someone who was a first responder who said they'd seen it. And then there was a question as to whether they had seen it or what the story was. I mean, again, there was lots of brutality. I mean, so and kids were killed. And there's no question that huge numbers of civilians were massacred. I mean, in the worst possible ways.
I wanted to play this remarkable video from October 7th that struck me, of a woman. I'm going to forget her name. Have you seen this?
This is Kinneret Gat, the legendary teacher of the Bibri Rakfa class. Mother, grandmother Raya. Soon they will kidnap the son of the oak, the child of the Jordan.
And this is an AI Hebrew translation, so it's probably very wrong, but I'll just play it regardless.
The little Nachara Gefen. Soon they will also kidnap the daughter of the Carmel. The duration of this photo is 7 seconds. What was Kinneret thinking about in those moments? Did she know that in an hour she would be murdered? At this moment, in the face of abandonment, she uses the only weapon she has. Kinneret directs a look at a terrorist and sticks her tongue out at him.
That was such a striking thing. This woman who's probably knows she's going to be killed, sticking her tongue out. I wonder, in researching your book, is there a story that struck you for some particular reason about that day?
I mean, there's a few stories that I put in the book that were striking. One of them is a bit mundane, but it was interesting to me. So there was a lot of, most of the communities that were attacked were kibbutzim that were on the border. Most of those communities have 400 to 800 people living on them. They're kind of small communities. They usually have a fence around them. And most of them had security teams made up of members of the kibbutz, usually men, who were usually guys in their 40s who had been in the army or sometimes elite units. And this dates back from the 50s when the kibbutzim were founded there, because in the early days, there was absolutely nothing there. Most of the men would go in the fields, and the women would go in the fields with pistols or rifles or submachine guns. So that's just how they lived. And anyway, there was a kibbutz named Kibbutz Magen, which literally means shield in Hebrew. And the security team there, the guys that ran it, one of the guys that ran it, he was convinced there will be an attack like October 7th. Not as bad, but he was obsessed with it. And he would train the team all the time. It's like a dozen people. And he built little fortifications that they could hide out even if they needed to fight off the attackers. And he, when the government started to take away the rifles from these communities because they felt they were not endangered, and asked them to put the rifles and ammunition in like armories and stuff on the communities with keys and things, because they thought that would make things more safe. This guy said, not only are you not taking the rifles, I want twice as many and I want more ammunition. And they said, well, why? He said, because there's a school down the road. What if my men have to defend a school? I need more weapons. And they said, okay, fine, you can have a few more. So he had stockpiled munition and weapons, and they were very well trained, this community. And the morning of October 7th, one of the guys, he went out in the morning because he like to smoke, and his wife, I guess, didn't want to do it at home. So he went out at 6:20 in the morning, and he sat and had a cigarette on this hilltop that dominates the community. And he could see over towards Gaza. It's very close, like 2 miles away. And he started seeing motorcycles and things coming through the fields. And he said, well, that's not good. So he raised the alarm, and the entire group went to their stations to fight. And one or two of them were killed, but they killed all the Hamas members in one blow, basically, that came at them. And one or two of them were casualties, I think, including the guy that was obsessed with this whole thing that had kind of saved them. So I like the story that it was this like happenstance of this 2 or 3 little things that put together correctly. It literally saved every single person's life in the community. And I thought it was such a cute little story. And one of the other stories that I liked, that I heard, where I met the guy that this happened to, he was the deputy commander of an armored brigade. And it was the 7th Armored, but anyways, one of the armored brigades. So He's a Druze. He's a member of a minority group that lives in Israel that is in the Druze and go to the army. So he was the deputy commander. He was living in the north with his family. He went home for the holiday and he was with his family, and he was woken up. He saw the videos on Telegram of this attack. He understood how bad it was. He got in his Jeep, which was an army Jeep, because he's the deputy commander. You get to have your own Jeep. And he started driving south, and he started calling all his men. And he said, I'm going to pick you up. Come with me. So he collected a few of them as he got closer to Gaza. It took him like 2 hours to drive there. And they had their rifles. They put on their ceramic vests and their helmets, and they got chambered rounds, and they were getting closer and closer. And, this guy's in charge of a brigade of tanks. He should have like 60 tanks under him. It was just him and a few guys in a Jeep. And they showed up and they fought some terrorists. And then they got a call from their division commander saying, listen, we need you to come fight. We need you to come fight in Kibbutz Be'eri, which has been overrun. It was one of the worst massacres at that time. So he went over there, and it was getting dark. And he went in, he said he estimated his group saved like 80 people. And they kept going back and forth. And at some point he got shot. And he didn't want to tell his fellow men that he was shot because he figured it would demoralize them and they'd have to take him out. So he just sat down on the curb and figured, okay, I'll bleed out. I don't know where this will end. And at some point he did tell someone, and they got him out, got to put him in an ambulance. The ambulance drove half an hour down a road in which the ambulance was then shot at. And he was telling the guys, just keep going through the Hamas members that were shooting. And he got to an aid station where there was a helicopter, and he's in bad way now. And they fly him out to a hospital in Jerusalem. And he's being wheeled into the operating room. He doesn't have his phone on him. He grabs the doctor by the arm, and he said, listen, doc, I'm not going to the operation until you call my family. Give me your phone. And the doctor says, you can die. You could die here. I have to take you in. He said, no, I'm not going in. Give me the phone. So he calls his family. He leaves a message for his father where he says, I'm in Hadassah in Karen in Jerusalem. I've been shot. I've been fighting all day. If something bad happens, that's where my body will be. Or if not, come see me tomorrow. And he knew that his family had no idea where he was because he'd woken up at 6 a.m. and just disappeared. I mean, they had no idea what had happened to this man. So he survived, and he went back with me to the kibbutz where he fought, and then he went back to Gaza to fight as the deputy of the command of the unit.
You can just say yes or no. You don't have to go into detail, but because I've heard it so commonly, quote unquote, debunked, I need to ask this. Were there sexual assaults on October 7th?
I have no way of knowing. I mean, I assume from what I read was that there's accounts of people that heard people being raped or saw that, or the first responders that said they found, women that were half naked and things, which would tend to look like that. Okay. I mean, the treatment of women in the videos is quite clear that these people were being mistreated. I mean, you could draw your conclusions, but a woman being dragged by her hair, or a woman body in the back of the truck, or there's a picture of a woman being pulled out of a shelter where everyone is dead inside or something, and one of them makes a comment like, we could assault her or something. I mean, it seems to me that the evidence would be there, but again, I didn't interview assault survivors, or, I mean, my book focused more.
Yeah.
So, but there's no shortage of people that have focused on this issue, and I think have developed the stories that they've heard.
One other short question: were members of families tortured? I've heard stories that like a father's arm would be. I heard a horrific story that a guy's penis was cut off, and they sent a picture of it to his mother. Did that happen?
It's about this stuff about Facebook or something where they would open the phones and send things, but I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember the whole thing, but I mean, yeah, there were these people were brutalized and murdered. I mean, and some of them, I don't know what you call it, torture, but in some cases, they would use one guy to go around to houses to tell people to come out. And then they killed that person, I think. I mean, yeah. And there's a video of these guys beating to death some of the foreign workers with a hoe.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the worst type of brutal massacre of people, I think. I mean,
Yeah,
massacre, but
it
you know,
doesn't matter. They killed a teenager who could
this
in
was
a
an orgy,
wheelchair.
an orgy of violence, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know,
Right.
how long they took to torture people. I mean,
Right.
it was an orgy of violence that went on for hours,
Okay.
and an unprecedented number of people were killed. I mean, in terms of a human history, I think it's one of the worst single-day massacres in human history, the worst killing of Jews since the Holocaust. So that's kind of a fact.
They killed old ladies at a bus stop. It was totally evil.
Oh, that's one of the worst cases. That's right. In Sderot, it was old people they were going on a tour, and they were massacred at the bus stop waiting for the bus that was supposed to take them on their tour.
Yeah, and for anyone who believes Hamas are heroes, I just want them to know the name Ruth Peretz, who was a disabled girl in a wheelchair with her father at the Nova Music Festival, who was killed. Could not walk. And I can't imagine being...
Right. I remember seeing the pictures of the dad because he used to carry her to these. I mean, she was in the chair, but there were pictures of him picking her up. They used to go to he was obviously into this. I guess she was too, but I mean, he was into these festivals and things. Yeah, I know, it's just horrific. I mean, these people had no sympathy. These people.
Why did Israel go from north to south in Gaza? I asked an Israeli about this, and he speculated that maybe they thought that it would push a lot of the civilians into Egypt, get them out of the way so they could just battle Hamas.
I've heard that story as well, that idea that maybe in the early part they thought maybe the Egyptians would take some civilians, although I don't think that was ever going to happen. But I have a more prosaic answer, which is the Israelis have always done the same thing in Gaza. If you pull up an image of how they fought in 2009, I think they also went north to south. I don't think they had a plan for how to conquer Gaza. They just took the plans that existed and said, well, let's just do that again. I mean, unfortunately, we always want militaries to be really smart, but actually, a lot of things that militaries do is just kind of what they've always done. So I think that the plans for Gaza were okay. Gaza City is important. Let's take that first. The Netzarim corridor, by the way, why did they take over the Netzarim corridor? By the way, it was the first thing they did. They cut Gaza City off from the rest of Gaza in an area called the Netzarim corridor, which is south of Gaza City, which the IDF still controls today. Why did they take it? Because the Netzarim corridor is named after Netzarim, which was an old Jewish community. It literally sat at a junction near the Salah ad-Din road that links Gaza City with southern Gaza. If you want to cut Gaza in half, you cut the road in half, and no one can go north or south. It's not rocket science. It's like getting rid of a freeway that goes between Phoenix and LA. I mean, it's just so brainlessly obvious. So they took that corridor as the first thing to do to isolate northern Gaza, and then they took over northern Gaza because they'd done it before. And it was just obvious. I mean, if the Romans wanted to take Gaza, they do the same thing. It's just obvious. Now, it doesn't make sense actually in retrospect, because why didn't they go into Rafah first and then go into Khan Yunis, which is where Sinwar is from, and just get rid of Sinwar first and kill the head of the snake and deal with that? Again, that would be what innovative thinking might give you. But unfortunately, militaries and tanks and infantry divisions just don't. This is not 3D chess. It's just checkers, and generally militaries are quite good at that.
Let me tell you my crazy idea for what Israel should have done, because it leads to I think a disagreement we have about the strategy. And this is sort of crazy, but what I would have done after October 7th, if I was Netanyahu, I would have given a press conference and said, we're now taking control of the Rafah crossing so that Hamas cannot rearm, get more rockets, guns, digging equipment. I would have just built some infrastructure, some, thing that leads from Israel. And then I would have, and this is sort of crazy, I wouldn't have touched. Unless it was, oh, we know Sinwar's in this house. We know Def's here. Because why destroy Hamas when you can disarm Hamas? And think about if they had done, and I know what I'm saying is crazy because the Middle East is so brutal and you have to be super tough to reassert deterrence. I get it. But if they had done that, no ICJ indictment, no global protests, and then you just encourage Hamas, hey, fire your rockets, please. Fire your guns. It's your last rockets. What is scary about Hamas taking care of the garbage disposal in Gaza with no guns or rockets?
What about the hostages? How do you get them out?
Well, that's the problem.
How do you bring justice to 800 people that were killed? I mean,
Exactly.
in general, I just think if a group, Hamas is I don't know what it is. I mean, it's in my view, a genocidal group, but you could say it's like a mafia cartel as well. I mean, if a cartel kills 800 people, I would assume you should probably go after those cartel members. I mean, at the end of the day, that's kind of how things work. Otherwise, I feel like, yeah, you could cut them off, but they will do this. They'll just keep doing it. I don't know. I mean, something has to be done. I don't think you can live next to an enemy that kills 1,000 of your people and kidnaps 250. I think you have to get rid of that group. Like ISIS, you have to totally expunge it. Like the Nazis, the KKK or something. I mean, I don't think you could just say, well, we'll just take the ropes away from the KKK, but we'll let them function. I mean, I just think you have to go after those people and eradicate them somehow. Now, does that mean you have to cause massive civilian suffering while doing it? Or maybe you don't have to do it. There are probably different ways to do it.
Okay, so let's speed up to now. Because I don't know why Israel, I know that the military operations have declined. I know it's a lot less, but they're still doing pretty major stuff. People are dying. Sinwar's dead. I mean, what's the point? I mean, in my opinion, Israel must keep, at least for a number of years, control of that border with Egypt. But beyond that, why not just call it a day?
Look at you have to get the hostages back. I mean, I can't comment on the logic of the current Israeli tactic because I wouldn't say it's a strategy, but it's a tactics. Because I don't necessarily, the Israelis have their own game plan or their own time frame, or maybe they don't. I mean, my view is that, as I said, Hamas should not run Gaza. It's a genocidal group. Hamas leaders should be brought to justice. Most of them are dead, so you can't do that anyway. I mean, whatever. That's mostly done. The hostages should be rescued and found. I would say that it would be better to do it militarily. I don't know about a deal. I mean, I don't think there will be a deal. So, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, holding on to Rafah makes sense. And I don't know, the rest of Gaza, again, my preference would be to get rid of the group. So my preference would have been to do it back a bit ago because it seems that the going in and going out and going in, I don't know what it's achieving, but it does grind them down. It does. But I just saw an article by Mark Dubowitz, a colleague of mine at FTD, who said there are diminishing returns. I've said that before as well. Diminishing returns are a big problem, and that is a big question mark. But again, the Israelis the Israeli leadership has its own time frame and its own concepts, and they will have to decide that. It's not, I may disagree with it. I don't know.
But okay, there's 20,000 Hamas left. But if they have barely any gun or bullets left.
No, but that's this position they were the same position they were in 2006 or something or more. I mean, I don't know.
But now you have Rafah.
That organization from that they turned into the beast that they became. So you don't want. I mean, this is a circular discussion.
Yeah. Okay.
My view is they shouldn't exist.
Right.
My sense is if you leave them there, they will go back to what they were. But again, I believe they want to take over the West Bank. So my view actually, Matt, what happens in Gaza is not the only story. Mahmoud Abbas is going to pass away. And then I believe they will try to take over the West Bank. So we have to wonder about the hidden plan or the Deus Ex Machina of what they'd like to do next.
Is Israel out of Arrow missiles?
No, I don't think so. But I think the deployment of THAAD, which is a terrible name for an air defense system, by the way, is evidence that Israel feels it should be bolstered. I assume anyway, Arrow interceptors, like any anti-ballistic missile systems, it turns out, even Western countries don't build very many of them because no one thought, well, we'll have to deal with hundreds of these things because people, didn't think apparently. But anyway, yeah, I assume Arrow you have to build a bunch more of them. And by the way, Israel's in a deal with Germany to supply Arrow to Germany next year. So remember, the Israel's under a huge pressure and constraints to build lots of this stuff. Of course, I'm sure Israel would always use the system first to defend lives in Israel, but I'm just saying that I think the bolstering of the system tells us a lot, which is that the Iranians have a lot of ballistic missiles, and there has to be a lot of options to defend against it.
The Israeli economy is suffering. The credit rating's been downgraded. The army is tired. The Haredi won't serve. Outrageously, in my opinion. Sorry?
Wars are supposed to be good for economies. What about the military-industrial complex? I thought the Second World War helped America out of the Great Depression.
Isn't Israel's economy sort of suffering right now?
They say the economy's been hit by this. I'm just saying that it's not always all bad news. War is.
Oh yeah.
No, I mean war. Unfortunately, the sad story of war is that there is an economic gain and a loss. But I'm saying that there is somehow also Israel's losing out from tourism. There's no tourism now. There's no flights. Basically, there's a lot of bad things. The war is not good at all. And keeping men in the army for 8 months out of 12 months takes them out of the economy. So it's not good. I mean, that's why Israel's historic leaders said we should fight for 6 days and that's enough.
Exactly. What I'm getting at, and 30 Israeli soldiers tragically have died in Lebanon in a week.
5 people were killed a day.
Yeah.
Not soldiers, civilians.
Mark Dubowitz, as you said, Hugh Hewitt, Donald Trump, these are pro-Israel people. They're all sort of converging on a consensus of,
yes,
listen, guys, sure, it's time to sort of wrap this up.
Right. Well, there you go. The question mark then is, Israel's enemies would like it to wrap up, and they'd like to say, well, you see, we survived. So that's the problem, in terms of, well, can they be removed before that?
Well, I personally, I think if it's true that Iran has lost its missile defense, you need to do a follow-up strike on Iran. But generally, do you agree that sometime soon this military operation needs to conclude?
Well, again, I am of the opinion that you should not end an operation that is a war of attrition in which the enemy says they won by the mere existence of surviving. So I would say the end result should be a decisive military victory, and therefore plodding along into a ceasefire in which both sides claim they won, but obviously leaving the enemy in power on the ground is not great, because possession is 9/10 of the law. And there's a saying about whoever controls the field of battle at the end, kind of wins it. So it's not great to leave the enemy in control of some portion of the field. But again, that's why I would argue for first defeating them and then ending it. But I would prefer a faster defeat and then an ending.
Are you talking about Hamas?
Both of them. I mean, Hamas should be, as I said, Hamas should be totally replaced. So, but again, having fighting in Lebanon and the two front wars are not great for Israel. So maybe what Israel should do is do a peace deal in the north, ceasefire, and then move the army back to the south and get rid of Hamas. That's a plausible strategy. But again, will it happen?
I think you should do the opposite. Let me ask you a question. Is this even possible? Could Israel empty out Lebanon south of the Litani River and turn it in? No?
Well, yeah, most of the civilians already left. I mean, they could go in, they could send tanks to the Litani like they did in 78, which took like a few days or something. And, you can see what you can find. I mean, the goal is to pressure the government to kind of surrender and say, okay, fine, we'll tell Hezbollah to go away. But the government of Lebanon has not shown any ability to do that in 18 years. They've shown an ability to fail.
What I was going to ask is, could you turn it into an empty, demilitarized zone?
You already did that. It was called the South Lebanon Security Zone or something, and it was not great. I mean, it wasn't all the way to Litani. It was like a little weird thing along the border. And they had this local Christian militia helping Israel called the SLA. There's no militia today, by the way. That doesn't. I mean, there's no local force now to help because that was an outgrowth of the chaos of the Lebanese Civil War, which is not great. It's not easy to run a security zone, and security zones generally don't work that well. I mean, I don't know what examples there are. I think every historical example of security buffer zones, you can run them for a very long time, but they don't necessarily work in the end, in the long run. You usually end up leaving, and it bleeds you slowly.
So do you have any ideas for what to do in Lebanon?
I don't know. I mean, ideally, the international community should step up to the plate and actually do what they're supposed to do, and Israel should eradicate as much of Hezbollah as possible south of Litani. But again, the evidence shows that the international community won't do anything. Lebanon won't do anything. Hamas will return. But I guess Israel's theory is if you reduce Hezbollah by like 90%, then they don't matter as much.
Oh, there was all this reporting, and I'm sure it's probably true, that Hezbollah has tons of these sophisticated missiles, and they've only used them a few. Sorry?
Yeah, precision-guided munitions.
And they've only used them apparently a few times.
Story we've heard. I mean, that's a story that goes back several years about the danger of the PGMs. I don't know. It's a good question. Are they hiding that stuff somewhere in Baalbek or up in the north and waiting to roll it out at a time of their choosing? I mean, or is it hard to deploy it? Or B or C, is it destroyed?
D, and I was going to ask, could the intelligence have been wrong?
I mean, I don't know what wrong. Look, what is a precision? What is a PGM? Precision is part of the word, so it's precise. It means that you can hit, an airport or a fuel refinery precisely. Guided means there's a man in the loop probably, which I guess, or maybe they just put in coordinates, but then it's not really that well guided. But it goes from A to B. Maybe it flies like a weird path. Like that's not easy for air defenses. That's like a cruise missile, right? Drones, by the way, are a loitering munition. Kamikaze drones are a type of precision-guided munition, probably. So Hezbollah has them. I don't know. I mean, it's a problem if you use a bunch of them to attack a strategic target like a refinery or a port, because it's hard to defend against all of them. But Israel's, by the way, has improved its air defenses, exponentially in the last few years. So I think they can be done.
Do you think there's going to be a follow-up attack on Iran in the near future?
I have no idea.
No idea. But do you think if there isn't, would that be a tragic mistake?
No, I don't think necessarily. I mean, we'll have to see. I don't know. I don't know.
I've been wondering this for a long time. As I watch these protests in the U.S. about, don't send weapons to Israel, my fantasy that I kept thinking about was, what if Israel was totally self-reliant and none of these people mattered? Is that possible? Or is the fact that you're using American jets, it means, yeah, you can get a little bit more self-reliant, but not.
Well, it's a globalized world. No one's ever really self-reliant. There's all sorts of technologies that you need from some other place, but then maybe you put it all together, yourself. So, what is self-reliance? Israel already makes lots of its own stuff. It doesn't make F-35s, but it makes a lot of other stuff, like artillery and tanks and things. It's a question of scale sometimes. Can you build enough of them? But I think that Israel's pretty reliant. Not only is Israel reliant, it exports weapons all over the world. So it's the opposite. Israel is a net giver. It's not that Israel doesn't have enough stuff. It's just a few things it doesn't build.
But if Israel finds itself in a position like it's in now, where it needs all these bombs, let's say in 7 years, do you think Israel is going to do the work to a point?
Yeah, I think they'll build them. I think most of these bombs can be built, and the big ones are not even necessarily that smart. So I assume that's not an issue.
So they won't be dependent on shipments from.
And on it because you want to have America as a partner. So it's not just dependency. It's just the nature of the economy. I mean, you're buying these systems from the Americans. They buy from Israel. Iron Dome interceptors are made in Arkansas, some of them. I mean, because America bought the system. I mean, and it's sold by Raytheon. I mean, these are Israel is very closely knitted into the U.S. defense industry and vice versa. So and also Europe. I mean, they just tested the trophy system on the German Leopard tanks. They're going to build it in Europe as well, and it might be on the UK tanks and Norwegian ones as well. So we have to remember, Israel's part of the global economy of the Western military defense complex.
Do you think its reliance on America right now is too much?
No, I think it's just right. I think it's
really.
Yeah, I mean, I don't buy the stories that the Americans will cut this stuff off. I think the American defense industry loves Israel. I think the American military likes Israel. I think it's good that everyone's connected. I think in the end of the day, Israel's part of the Western American camp. So there's just no other option. And insofar as there's another option, Israel has Indian things, that's fine. But it's fine. Well, it's good to be connected to the state.
What about a situation where Israel is sure that Iran's going for nukes and the U.S. doesn't want to help? Isn't that a problem?
I mean, Israel will go it alone. I have no idea. I'm sure they thought about that for 20 years.
Okay. The reason I asked, I wonder if you agree, is in Israel, there's all these crazy ideas on the far right. Moshe Feiglin, Smotrich. And I've been thinking that if Israel is going to be dependent on the U.S., basically it needs to just stop even thinking about doing any of those crazy ideas because they would just totally destroy the alliance with America. Do you agree?
It will destroy the alliance. I mean, it's always good to hedge a bit, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's just that, it's politicians like to talk. It's okay. Israel's defense industry is a multi-billion-dollar defense industry. Defense industries do lots of things on their own. I mean, it just doesn't matter that much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.